I feel like you can tell who's an American from a mile away because the way like we dress, but like European people dress like very European.
The relationship that Italians have with alcohol is so different than the US.
So for all my people out there that do decide to partake in drinking festivities, what's your preference? Wine, beer, liquor of any sort? Very valid question, because I decided to make a pilgrimage over to Germany and challenge a lot of the locals to a drinking competition, which I absolutely lost. I lost very badly. I thought the American beers back in the United States would have prepared me for my utter demise. Germany, I was not prepared at all, and it made it for a very fun and laughable experience, but that was just one of the many culture shocks I went through. And for the people who did answer my question at the opening of this video, please also drop your favorite brand of whatever that drink you like is. If you are a wine connoisseur, what is your favorite wine brand? If you are a beer connoisseur, what is your favorite beer brand? And if you are a liquor connoisseur, what is your favorite type of liquor and your favorite type of brand? I would like to know. For many reasons. I might have an idea in the future where I do happen to make a trip throughout Europe and try some interesting drinky drinks. But it doesn't go without saying, a lot of us Americans that love traveling the world happen to land through the threshold of Europe into different European countries and absolutely get baffled with different culture shocks that are normal in those areas and absolutely not normal for us coming from the United States, which prides itself as being the land of the free, although a lot of us do feel quite restricted these days. But that's besides the point. We're gonna be looking at a lot of Americans that have had very unique experiences throughout Europe that do come off pretty interesting, if I do say so myself. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you guys are returning viewers, welcome back. You guys have been here long enough to know what type of journey we're on, so go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, to help us chase 1 million subscribers, hopefully by the end of this year.
Can you guys tell I'm in Europe with this fucking hotel room looking ass? Anyways, here's some culture shock that I've had. I'm a little wine drunk, but here are all the culture shock as an American and also a Chinese person in Europe for the first time. Bitch, why is there no motherfucking first floor? Why is the motherfucking first floor 0 floor? How does that even make sense? 0 is not a freaking number. It's nothing. How can you make the fucking first floor 0? Why is there no closing fucking sign in the elevator?
She's already addressed 2 things, but I'm going to address the first one. When I traveled to Germany for the first time and arrived in my hotel, getting to my floor was the interesting part, because I did not know that the first floor was 0 and not 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought, like, I guess to me, it didn't make any sense. Like, 0 floor, what? 0, then 1, 2, 3. What? I don't even think we have a 0 floor at all throughout the United States. It's just ground floor, then 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. But the way they have it set up in the hotels is kind of mind-boggling. But I know I was not the only individual that traveled from the United States that also got incredibly confused, because there were a lot of my American counterparts that were there on the same day as I, and they were also very perplexed, and we were navigating the space until we were able to figure our stuff out, because we were absolutely mind blown. So I realized I left out a very key part of this story. When I got to my hotel, apparently the elevator wasn't working at the time, so I had to take the stairs, which is where me and the other Americans were also very confused, because we assumed that the first floor was the first floor and all the other floors above that were like 2, 3, 4, 5, but we were off by 1 floor since the first floor was actually 0 floor. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what was a wild culture shock for not just me, but many other Americans that have traveled at least to Germany in this case, right? And I do know that this seems to be the case in other countries throughout Europe as well. Now, I really wish this young lady would let us know which country in Europe she was in when she had this culture shock specifically, because I do feel like some of the things that she brings up are country specific, but I don't know. She never winds up letting anybody know which country she's in. She just says, in Europe, blah, 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 blah. My experience in Europe. I'm like, whenever I let you guys know my experiences in Europe, I also let you know that my experiences are directly tied to Germany exclusively. Maybe sometimes Belgium, maybe sometimes Netherlands, but 99% of the time it'll be my experiences in Germany, because that's where I frequented the most. Okay. Even some of the elevator situations were a little interesting as well, because there weren't closed buttons on the elevator, which seemed to be a bit strange. It honestly depended on the hotel that you went to, but that was obviously something that stood out to what I was used to in the United States.
Bitch, I want to shut the motherfuckers out. I don't want to wait for the motherfuckers. Why is there no fucking close button? Only
people use that close button in Korea like it's a weapon, damn near. Okay, now we got the close button in the United States as well, but when I saw that there was no close button, at least in the elevator I was in the hotel I stayed at in Germany, I'm like, oh, we're cooked. If someone is trying to, rush to get the elevator and they stick their arm in, or like, they're slow walking to the elevator and the doors are slowly closing, and right before they close, someone steps in and the elevator door closing process has to restart, that's super annoying and it kills unnecessary time.
Is there no fucking close button? Only open button. It does not make any sense to me. Ow! Bro, the metro system does not make any sense. It does literally not make any sense. Like, sometimes I just skip when you're on Apple Maps for no reason, and you think you got on the fucking wrong train, and you realize, wait, this one just oddly split, like the Japanese system. Like, what's up with the metro system randomly, like, start jumping and shit? I feel like you can tell who's an American from a mile away because the way, like, we dress, but, like, European people dress, like, very European.
Now, this is where I would love to know where specifically in Europe she is, because I don't think she's mentioned that at all. And I'm going to look at the hashtags real quick to see if we can get some context clues. So I don't know where she's staying right now, but I do know that she's somewhere in Europe. Very little context, very little to work with, because each European country is unique. There will quite obviously be different culture shocks, ways you have to navigate in one country versus another. So I do not know which country she's referring to when she's talking about how complex the metro system is. Now, I can only go off of my own personal experience and probably the only place I frequented in Europe, which was Germany. Notice how I said frequented. I have been to a few other countries, but I only frequented Germany. The metro there was amazing. I loved it, except for the lack of timeliness. The Deutsche Bahn is probably one of the worst train systems on the entire world. The Deutsche Bahn is probably one of the worst train systems on the entire planet when it comes to punctuality. Everything else, 10 out of 10. Loved it. But when it came to punctuality, horrible. It was a nightmare. At first, it was lightly inconvenient, but it got to a point where I was missing out on a lot of experiences because of that train system. And I'm like, man, listen, the best way you can enjoy the Deutsche Bahn in Germany is literally not having any plans for the day you decide to take that train. Okay, that's the only way you can truly enjoy that. But then she goes on to explain that spotting Americans in Europe, and in this case for me, spotting Americans anywhere outside of the United States, is very easy.
I feel like you can tell who's an American from a mile away because the way, like, we dress.
She's not lying. We stand out like a sore thumb. We can hear each other because we're incredibly loud. And let's say for our introverts that love to travel that are not loud at all, we can tell by how you dress and how you carry yourself and how you navigate with locals. And it's just very different. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like a big old beacon. I'm like, oh, okay. American spotted. For you guys that are watching this video right now, how can you spot us Americans out in your country? If you guys are just walking and navigating, how can you differentiate us as Americans from other people from other countries? Is it obvious? Is it not that obvious? Let me know how and why, because all of you guys' indicators are strikingly unique in ways that I have not even thought to think of before.
Also, I've never been like a huge fan of wine, but bitch, that shit. I don't think you guys can see it because TikTok has like a beauty filter. Bitch, I'm red. I had like 2 little half cups of freaking rosé. That shit low-key made me feel woozy. And I can take tequila shots.
Now, what I'm about to say definitely depends on which country you travel to, but generally speaking, the wine throughout Europe, I really think is really, really good. Delicious, delicious, delicious. I mean, there's a reason why America imports wine from all over Europe in droves. Specifically, I've seen a lot of imports from Italy and from France. So maybe those are like the wine capitals of the world or something. But everywhere I've been, even in Korea, when I go to wineries, their shelves are painted with Italian wines, French wines, and some German wines too.
Oh my God, the hotel espresso machines, they don't stop when it's done. They stop when you press the button. Bro, that thing freaking went crazy and leaks all over the fridge that was like below it because I didn't know you were supposed to stop it.
I didn't know that either, but the comments obviously had a lot to say because it's called ground floor. The first floor is the one above it. It's the first additional floor. It makes total sense. I guess as I was giving that explanation earlier, I was thinking in my head, I guess the ground floor for Americans is the equivalent of the 0 floor. So in actuality, maybe there isn't that much of a difference. Maybe you should disclose which country in Europe you mean, LOL. That's what I was saying, because some of those things I feel like can be applicable to most countries throughout Europe, but then a lot of those things are not applicable to most countries throughout Europe. That seems very specific, but I don't know which country she's talking about specifically. If you add 1 apple on the table, it's 1 apple high. And if you remove it, it's 0 apples high. Oh, okay. I'm kind of getting the ground zero starting to make sense. The ground level, floor 0, we're speaking the same language. I actually love the metro in Italy, or at least Milan anyways. I've heard wonderful things about the metro throughout Italy, but I don't know very much about it at all. How would you guys rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? What's your favorite part about the metro in Italy for the people who have taken the metro in Italy? And how would you compare it to other railways throughout Europe?
Europe just can't be a real country, bro. Take me back to America. I came here saying I need some ice, bro. That's 1, 2 ices. They gave me some water and they gave me 2 ices, bro. Not 3. They gave me 2 ices.
Oh boy. Oh boy, I already know what these comments about to say, man. I went to New Orleans asking no ice. I want more drink, not ice that fills 2/3 of the volume of the cup. That's the strategy for a lot of businesses in the United States. The reason, and I know you guys know, but I'm going to explain it anyways for the people who don't know. There might just be one person in the comments that doesn't know why they do this. So for the one person, the reason why they put so much ice in the cups of us Americans in the United States and why we absolutely love it for some weird reason is from the business side of things, they save more of their juice, more of their beverage that they're distributing to their customers. So let's say the customer orders a triple XL cup of some special juice that they're selling at a store. Then what they do is they fill up a triple XL cup with a bunch of ice, right? All the way to the tippy top. And then they pour the drink inside this XL cup. But because all of the ice has now displaced most of the space, you're getting the equivalent of an extra medium glass of that drink that you ordered, and the rest of it is ice. But people don't know that. And as you're drinking, the ice is melting, so you're getting diluted drink. So it's funny when people order an extra large drink or a large drink or any drink and they say no ice, a lot of the cashiers give you the craziest looks. You figured us out? You figured the trick out? No ice, are you sure? But my uncle put it to me like this. They would never serve you lukewarm juice. They would never serve you lukewarm water. It'll come out of whatever device that they're serving you chilled. It's usually in a refrigerated machine that they're giving you the juice from. So why would you ask for a drink from an establishment with ice in it? Not being able to drink tap water is crazy. I think we're so traumatized with how bad the tap water is in the United States, we can't help but project how possibly bad the tap water is across the rest of the world, depending on the country you travel to worldwide. Obviously, it can reign to be the same thing as far as the water quality in that country as it relates to the United States. But in this case, most European countries have pretty solid filtration systems when it comes to their water. Now, I'm not saying every European country is like this, but a lot of them have very clean water. So you don't have to worry about getting poisoned when you're drinking from the tap. Number 1, Europe isn't a country. Number 2, we like a drink with our ice. We like ice in our drink. Okay. We love drowning our drink in ice. So we basically don't even want the drink. We just want a giant cup of ice with a splash of whatever drink that we desire at that time. Don't blame us for how we were raised and how we were accustomed to growing up in this world on the same mud ball that everybody else grew up on as well. Here we go again. And here's this picture that says, "No thanks, I'm American." And it's a person offering this man a brain. Yes, I knew that initial statement was going to pack him up to the moon and back.
Europe just can't be a real country, bro. Take me back to America.
And I'm like, bro, we're already starting off on a bad foot. Let's work on that a little bit. Okay, let's work on that a little bit. They gave you 2 ices? 2 ices is crazy.
They gave me some water and they gave me 2 ices.
You mean ice cubes?
Americans are loud, they're obnoxious, you hear them before you see them, our accents are jarring. Like, I get it, okay, I get the criticism, but I think a lot of y'all are doing entirely too much, because tell me why. I was on a public beach yesterday in the chair that I paid for, talking on the phone to my sister in a very quiet voice. I'm very self-aware. If I was talking loud, I wouldn't even making this video, because I'll be like, no, I was dead wrong. I was screaming into the phone. For context, this is what the beach club looked like. Like, it was very empty. There was really only one person sitting in front of me. So I'm talking to my sister in a very appropriate tone on the phone, and out of nowhere,
Hate to interrupt and be that guy, but two things. A lot of times, if you're the person that's talking loud, you're not going to realize you're talking loud. How would I know that? Because I have been very guilty of doing that myself. And that also rolls into point number 2. She said she was talking at an appropriate tone, which points me back to point number 1. You would not know that you were talking at an appropriate level if you are the loud person. You know what I mean? Like, you just wouldn't know. Just saying, maybe I'm wrong. You guys let me know in the comments down below, but I really feel like if you're the person talking loud, then obviously you're not going to know that you're talking loud, because you're the person talking loud.
in front of me comes up to me, the most like rude, condescending way, goes, just letting you know, I can hear every word you're saying. And I think she like wanted me to be embarrassed and be like, oh no, you like hurt my private conversation. Like, girl, I will literally set up my phone right now and trauma dump and tell this entire story and post it on my TikTok for the whole internet to see. Like, you got the wrong one. Like, I do not give a fuck. I'm like, okay. She goes, are you done on the phone, or are you gonna continue? Because I'm gonna move over there if you're gonna continue. I looked at this woman dead in the face and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna continue. And she looked like so puzzled. She was like, she like genuinely thought I was gonna like hang up the phone and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, girl, I'm on a public beach in the chair that I paid for. Mind you, there's like nobody around except for you. And then I just like kept staring at her and she was like, okay. And then walked back to her chair, sat the fuck down and did not move. And I continued to talk on the phone. Okay, so I called your bluff. Also, why are you telling me that? Like, okay, move. Like, why are you like threatening me with that? Like, I don't know you. If it's really bothering you that bad, then yeah, you should move.
I do think that this is a fair point. Most of the beach is empty and all the chairs are not reserved and it's open range, free range. If someone is bothering me that bad and they're that loud and I really, really have a problem with it, I'm gonna move. I'm just gonna move to a place that's a little bit quieter. Makes sense to me, but I don't know how you guys feel about that. Let me know in the comments.
Beach club was empty. You could go to any of the other chairs. Like, you go on the other side. You get far as fuck away from me. Then, genuinely like 30 minutes later, this woman pulls out her phone and starts having a whole conversation. Exact same volume I was.
You heard that too, right?
Then, genuinely like 30 minutes later, this woman pulls out her phone and starts having a whole conversation. Exact same volume I was.
She said the lady was talking at the same volume as she was. So, call me crazy, but that kind of insinuates that she acknowledges that she was talking loud herself, and that now the lady was also talking very loud, which means she was loud, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video. Now, I could be wrong, and you guys can let me know in the comments down below, but why is she getting frustrated if the lady's talking just as loud as she is? Because that doesn't make any sense. But like I said, just something I thought was interesting when she was telling her story about how she opened up with Americans are loud and blah, 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 and then she proceeds to tell a story about how she was actively bothering somebody that was in the nearby vicinity, and then acknowledges when the lady walks away, she also starts talking just as loud as she was talking. So strange, very strange.
Also, like, the entitlement of thinking you could like go up to a random stranger and tell them that they need to hang up the phone on a public beach. Who are you? Don't know what happened. Like, only explanation I can think of was like she heard my American accent and just was like annoyed and like associated it with like someone being loud and obnoxious and was like, oh, I don't want to hear this bitch talking. Truly, it does not make sense. Get the criticisms, I really do, I understand it, but a lot of y'all are just doing too much.
There's a lot to say about this entire situation, right? Two things can be true. She could have been extra loud and was definitely making at least one person in that vicinity really upset. That person also could have been a Karen. You know what I mean? Like, she could have just been doing too much. She could have been doing too much, and I could definitely see that. And that happens a lot, right? You're enjoying yourself, you're vibing, whatever, and all of a sudden somebody has a problem with you living life and enjoying yourself. But you have to be conscious with how you come off to people around you. If you are too loud, you're too obnoxious, and you notice that how you're coming off is aggravating people around you, if you know in your heart of hearts you're not going to change how you're acting, at least get some space so you're not disturbing the public like that. You know what I mean? Be self-aware of how you come off to the world, because she opened up the video saying that she was talking at an acceptable level, which is kind of ironic because the noise was coming from her. If somebody else co-signed and was like, yeah, I was with her, she was talking at an acceptable level, and this lady singled her out amongst all of the other people that were also talking, that would have been a different situation. But it seems like she was being loud and she she felt like she was put on the spot when the lady called her out for it. I live in a tourist city, and I promise that Europeans are 10 times louder than any Americans around. And it begins. American tourists versus European tourists. French are louder than any American I've ever met. I was in Pennsylvania and it was dead quiet. The most decibels I ever experienced was from the French in New York, inside. I've encountered quite a few French people. Maybe I'm meeting all the introverts because a lot of the French people I've met were pretty quiet. You know what I mean? So maybe I've hit a different space in the planet of French people. Some people just hate Americans, and it's not more complicated than that. I feel like it's deeper than that, right? I don't feel like people just be hating on Americans randomly for no reason, right? I feel like there is some validity where some of that hate comes from, right? If you have a lot of people doing things that are disturbing the peace and disregarding other people's way of life and things like that, and there's enough incidences that accumulate, then it does create a negative connotation associated with all Americans traveling abroad. In order to reverse that, you need to have more Americans travel abroad that know how to actually behave themselves and carry themselves appropriately. So I do think that if we can turn the tides of this narrative, then maybe Americans will have a better reputation traveling abroad. Now, it's funny, our country already has a very bad reputation as it is, aside from the American tourist traveling thing. The government of the United States is always under scrutiny for very valid reasons, but outside of that, we have the other half of the coin, which is the people, right? The American people and our shenanigans and how we behave and how we are perceived. And we sometimes like to shoot ourselves in the foot. I'm going to move if you don't hang up. Like, oh no, complete stranger, please don't get away from me. There are also several comments sharing the same sentiment as the comment that we just read. And I thought that was pretty interesting too. They're like, hey, well, at the end of the day, you don't know this person. Who cares what they think? Do you enjoy yourself? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm all for all of those things. Enjoy yourself, do you, but also just be mindful of where you are, who you're around, and how you can make the least amount of a disturbance as possible so you're not affecting somebody's day in a negative way.
The relationship that Italians have with alcohol is so different than the US. It's fascinating. In Italy, they grow up with an understanding about what alcohol is. It's not hidden under the disguise of like mommy's special juice or something like that. They know what it is. They can call it by name. And therefore, they grow up understanding its danger, understanding its power, the secrecy has been stripped away, so they know what it is, and therefore they grow up with an automatic respect toward it.
This is something I could not wait to talk about because there are so many people in my life, right, that have unfortunately fell victim to the tides of alcohol, right? They went through a lot, they got their hands on it, and they took it too far. Right. And a lot of it, in my opinion, I think is attributed to the fact that they started drinking when they were 21. They were finding out what their limit was in their early 20s. You know what I mean? So they're drinking unsupervised. The first time they drink, they normally drink with other people who are also drinking for the first time, or people who are probably not that responsible. So the likelihood of you making irresponsible decisions is astronomically higher, but this time you're an adult. So anything that you do while you're inebriated like this, you will be charged as an adult. And I think it's dangerous. I think increasing the drinking age to 21 was one of the most dangerous things we could have done as a society in the United States, because the way that I've seen it for most countries, at least throughout Europe, the drinking age is a lot lower. It's 16 usually, right? And typically you have to drink with your parents, like a guardian of some sort. Maybe you don't have to drink with your parents, but a lot of times your parents like will introduce you to alcohol and stuff like that. And like this lady mentioned, will teach you like the pros, the cons of alcohol and stuff like that. You fully understand its power. You understand the responsibility you have to make sure you're not drinking too much. And you get to find out what those limits are with your family, with your parents and stuff. So like, you're like, hey, cool. You know, boom, this is what this is. This is what this is. And it's like a guide to surviving that type of environment. Now, I'm not saying every family's perfect and everybody comes up and grows up fine. And boom, there's absolutely zero incidences related to alcohol that happen like when they grow up. I mean, there's obviously plenty, right? But I think it's far more responsible to do it that way. That way you're guiding people in a better direction than just throwing people in the fire after they turn 21. Okay. Just to me, that's always seemed very strange, because in my head, I'm like, well, now what's happening is, since we have this law in place in the United States, and there are a lot of people that decide to drink underneath that age anyways, now they have to do it in secrecy. And there is an even higher chance that people will be irresponsible because all the people who are not supposed to be drinking at that age are going to be like, okay, well, we'll figure this out the easy way or the hard way.
Something like within the culture here. So I'm going to read you a snippet from my book because, again, I just think it's so interesting. In Italy, alcohol is not seen as a forbidden fruit like it all too commonly is in the US. And so as a society, they grow up with a healthier relationship toward it instead of rebelling behind closed doors. Don't get me wrong, Italians always love a good excuse to have a drink and be merry, something I learned quickly during a long hike with Italian friends during my second month here that culminated in bottles of wine being pulled out of backpacks to celebrate reaching the top of the mountain. Generally, as a society, however, they view it with respect, almost as if it's an art form, something to enjoy rather than something to drink solely for the effects it gives when consumed in excess.
And I think that is probably the biggest difference I've seen with the drinking culture throughout Europe versus the drinking culture in the United States. I feel like in the United States, it's not a matter of, let me enjoy this drink. It's how fucked up can I get? How much can I feel something when I drink this stuff? Sometimes it's how much do I have to drink to not feel something? You know what I mean? It's different. Now, I'm not saying that sentiment doesn't exist anywhere else. I'm just saying I think that is a commonality with the way of thinking in the United States versus the way of how alcohol is perceived throughout Europe, right? It's more, you see it more in celebratory settings in Europe than you do in the United States. I feel like in the United States, you see it in like a lot of, and in every type of setting, right? People drink to celebrate, people drink when they're going through something, people drink when they really don't need to be drinking at all. And then it causes a lot of problems, but this also can translate into other countries and cultures as well. I'm completely aware of that, but I do think that the baseline of drinking, right? It's not like, oh, let's go to the park and sip some wine or whatever. If you find Americans in a park sipping wine, they're probably sipping the last little morsels of their 8th bottle of cheap wine. So obviously the comments had a lot to say. Let's go ahead and roll into our first one. Even Italian American, this is how I grew up. I never rebelled with alcohol. In fact, my mom even let me drink a glass of wine or champagne on special occasions. And that's how a lot of my European friends were in high school. I mean, a lot of them, their families are like, yeah, have a glass of wine with dinner. We don't care. And I'm like, what? A glass of wine with dinner? Y'all are crazy. I'd rather my teenager have a beer at home with us than out drinking at a party and trying to drive home. Bingo. That is what I'm trying to say. I think that's what I was trying to articulate, but I couldn't find the right words. I feel like the issue with the drinking age being 21 is when you are drinking for the first time, you're usually out with friends in a bar setting and you're having the time of your life. You do not know what your limits are. You drink and then let's say you accidentally get like super drunk beyond belief. You are now impaired. You're not in your right mind. You've never been here before. And so you make choices that will probably ruin your life. You're like, let me drive home. I don't feel so good, but you're drunk. So it feels like a trap, like an intentional trap that was set up to catch people lacking. Most Europe. Polish here, when I was a little girl, my dad used to give me sips if I ever wondered how it tasted. And I think that's also important too, because it kills the idea of, oh, there's this secret, sacred thing that you can only touch under certain circumstances. It's very particular, but it's just alcohol, man. You know what I mean? It's just alcohol. Just, learn how to use it responsibly. This is how my parents approached alcohol in the same way. We are in the US. We could try it once we were older, so it wasn't a forbidden thing. Doing the same with my children. Again, I think it's very important to at least have some teachable moments and stuff and be like, hey, this isn't like some weird Puritan thing that you guys can't consume. Obviously, wait until they're like a little bit older, right? Like, if you want to, as young as like 10 or 11, cool. A little earlier than that, then I wouldn't be giving them a whole bunch of stuff or whatever, right? But like, I've heard stories of people giving their kids as young as 7, like a little sip of like something that they were drinking and stuff, right? And as they got older, they're like, okay, cool. I mean, you know what this is. You can go ahead and drink some of that. I mean, we're watching you. We're right here. So cool. That's interesting, right? I mean, it allows you to figure out where your limits are, and it actively encourages responsible drinking. And I think that's an interesting culture shock that to this day, many of us Americans will never be able to wrap our heads around.